In this first assignment, you're going to create your first variable. So you're going to basically look at the instructions here, and I want to remind you to select all this code and copy and paste it to your own sketch. So when you open up these assignments, you can click into the code and either use Command A or Control A to select all, and then just choose copy. I like Control C or Command C, and then you can create a new sketch. As a detail, I've had some quirks I want to mention, that sometimes when I'm viewing my sketches and click new sketch, sometimes it's opening an older one instead of doing a new sketch for me. If you have any problems like that, I recommend that you just create a new tab, basically jump back into P5 fresh, and then that'll help you start a new sketch, just if you encounter that problem. Might have just been a quirk that I had. So I'm going to reopen exercise 1 and assume again you've copied it to your own sketch. That way you can save it for yourself as you work on it. So in this first assignment, we're going to create a variable, and I want to point for a second just the beginning code at the bottom, and don't forget to hit play to run the program so you can see what there is to start with, and you can turn on auto refresh too, so that you're able to see any changes you make live without having to hit the run button again. And the start code for this is basically just a setup function with create canvas. You can see it's set to 400 by 400 already. That's basically your canvas size, width and height. And then down in draw function, so far there's just a background with gray and one circle created. It's positioned at 150 horizontal and 150 pixels down vertically, and it's 100 pixels wide, just to see what's there to start with. And as you read the instructions, you're going to first declare or create the variable, and then initialize just means that you're assigning a value to it. So those are your first two steps. And by the way, you're going to create the variable right in here. It should go before your other code blocks. Basically, the idea there is create the variable, define it so it exists first, and then you can use it and reference it down in the functions afterwards. So this can be a good spot to place it. I'm going to bring up a finished solution file just so you don't have to watch me type. It'd be a little faster. And we'll start to look at what I have. So first here is the variable on line 34. And typing VAR is just basically a keyword that's saying we're about to create a variable. You can also use let, L-E-T, is actually a more contemporary way to create the variable, but both work. So in this case, it's var, a space, and then this is where you're creating the name. You're creating your own custom name, and it's really important that you don't have any spaces in it, that it doesn't start with a number, that it doesn't include any symbols. In case matters, it has to always match when we use it. So this is following a really standard protocol that all programmers use, where it's very popular to use camel case, where they'll go lowercase at first. If it's just one word, we'd go all lowercase. And if there's multiple words, you can capitalize second, third, fourth word, so you can still read the phrase easier. So maybe you can use that same pattern if you create variable names yourself later. You can also copy from up here if you like to get started. So basically, once we say there is a variable, we've defined it, its name is circle diameter, and then we are initializing it, which just means I'm adding a value. So all you do there is add equals, and I'm adding 100 just to say that it's 100 pixels wide to start out with. And then don't forget to end the statement with a semicolon. So right there, just on that one line, I've defined the variable and then initialized it by adding a value to it. And then from there, the next instruction is to basically start to use the variable. You can look at it as a way to hold a value or hold information. But now we can reference it by using its name, basically like circle diameter could be placed instead of a value. Like for example, if we're going to add circle to create the circle, instead of putting in a hard number like 100, you can substitute that with the variable name and it will still run and function. So that's your next step, is you can take circle diameter after you've created it, you can copy, and you can go down and find the circle code that was here initially. And the third value was a size. You could replace 100 there with your variable name to call it. I also wanted to just make a point, something you can try if you want to. I want to show that it is really useful to create these variables because you might be calling them more than one time. You might be using them in more than one instance. And it does make it quick to redefine multiple instances just by changing the variable value. So this wasn't included in the instructions, but if you want to, you can add extra circles. I simply added 3 more, give them different fill colors. And all of them are using the variable name circle diameter instead of using a hard-coded number in that case. You can see it repeated. And here, they're right here. By the way, I changed the position. So I did alter the first 2 values slightly just to adjust the position of my 4 circles so they weren't on top of each other. And then let's just make a quick change just again sort of make that point that this is useful if it feels like it was labor intense to set up. So right up here, I'm going to go and change that value. Instead of 100, why did I make it 20? And you can see it's immediately affecting all 4 circles. Maybe that starts to show that that's faster, more valuable than always having a hard number. I think I'll change it again. Maybe I'll make it 80. And feel free to do that. It might help you practice by adding more shapes, assigning colors. Some of that we did last week, but just practicing that could be really valuable and maybe help you see again that some of the value of that variable is being able to alter it and have it impact more than one instance in code as you run the program.